What's the creepiest, most obsessive thing you have ever done? I keep files on people, highly detailed, highly specific files, just about anyone I've ever had any kind of interaction with. They cover things such as how they dress, how they handle certain situations, contradictions they've spoken, manner of speaking, handwriting style, personality, body language, body movements, how they sit, how they walk or run, and little subtle things like body jerks or leg jiggling. I also note their past, memory abilities, how accurate their stories are, their strengths, physical and mental, their weaknesses, body shape, weight, height, shoe size, clothing size, eye color, just about every little detail. Some of the more detailed files include what they mean to me, how they are a positive and negative force in my life, and how they are useful. Why do I do this? Because it's kind of fun, and it gives me an advantage over some people. I know what makes them tick. Should I ever need to mentally challenge or dismantle someone? Most of the files are pages and pages long, the longest being about 75 pages. Of course, I have zero intention of ever letting anyone else see them. They're just for my eyes. As far as I know, I don't have anything like OCD or any mental health problem. I've never seen a therapist, but maybe this is testament to the fact that I might need to. Story 2. Before the laws were changed in Oregon, you could go to the DMV with a license plate number and $4 and get all the information on the vehicle's owner. In 1994, I was working at a Dairy Queen when the most beautiful girl I had ever seen came in, probably with her parents. I was covered in fried grease, so I was too embarrassed to talk to her. I took down their plate number and went to the DMV the next day. I gave my 2 weeks notice at Dairy Queen, moved to Portland, and got a job at a grocery store 2 blocks from her house, always taking my lunch break in my car outside her house, hoping I would someday bump into her. Eventually, I did. I want to preface this by saying that I am not proud. After 2 or 3 months of working in the photo department at Fred Meyer and eating lunch in front of her house, I decided I had to be more proactive since I hadn't seen her since the afternoon at Dairy Queen. I walked up to her front door, not sure what I was going to say, and knocked. I remember the doorbell had a little sign that said no, so I figured knocking would be okay. No one answered after a few tries and it began to rain heavily. Their house had cheap striped 1950s-style canvas awnings over the windows, so I ran around to the side of the house and took shelter while trying to figure out my next move. I had an hour for lunch, so I had all the time in the world. I noticed a window was unlocked. It was the old wooden kind without screens, and for some stupid reason, I opened it. I poked my head into what was a little eat-in kitchen and locked eyes with her. She was sitting at the table doing homework and listening to headphones. She screamed bloody murder. I banged my head on the window and ran away back to work. I was too scared to get my car after my shift because I was afraid she might see me, so I had my roommate pick it up after dark. I didn't show up for work the next day and never went back to that job again. I never even found out her first name. So if you lived near the intersection of 25th and Weidler in the early 90s, had short black hair, and some guy with glasses and a beard poked his head into your window, I am sorry for stalking you poorly for 2 months and freaking you out. Story 3. This happened last year before Christmas. I had a bad breakup with someone who knew some dangerous people. One night, I found a frozen chicken on my doorstep. It was the middle of the night, 12 days of Christmas style. The note said, "From your one true love." I called every ex-girlfriend, friend, and acquaintance I could think of, just to check. No one had any idea what I was talking about, and I was certain someone had left it. Hear me out. Many years ago, I used to do risky things for some bad people, and I got very good at watching my back. I eventually got out, but I probably made enemies along the way. People who would not want me talking. So I started to panic, trying to figure out who was doing this. I went through every friend and even acquaintances. At best, I thought it might be my ex. At worst, I thought I might be in serious trouble. It would not have been the first time something suspicious had happened. Since I thought it might be dangerous, I stashed the chicken in my freezer and told someone I trusted that if anything happened to me, they should check the frozen chicken. Yes, I actually said that. The next night, I figured whoever left it might come back with another package. I decided I needed to be ready. I borrowed a camcorder from a friend, an old 1990s piece of tech, and set it up facing the street. I cut down every leafy plant in my backyard and hauled it all to the front yard. I put on my ghillie suit with mud, gloves, and shoe polish smeared on my face. It started raining hard, so instead of waiting on the roof, I used the greenery to build a lean-to against the porch and covered it with a tarp. It looked like a pile of yard clippings. I brought my sidearm, strapped to my ankle. I also brought my hunting crossbow with special tips, a laser guide, and a flashlight. Then I lay in wait under the lean-to. Hours passed. Every car made my heart jump. I sweated in the suit in the rain. My stomach growled, but I stayed alert. Finally, I heard a car pull up. This was it. Either someone had lied to me, or I was about to make a very quick decision. I steadied the bow and got ready. Quick footsteps ran up the walkway to the porch. I prepared to snap on the light and confront the intruder. My mom set down a frilly ribbon-laced bag and giggled as she walked back to the car. Then it hit me. Your one true love. Oh my God. I had been lying in wait in a ghillie suit with a crossbow ready to confront my own mother, who was just doing a 12 days of Christmas surprise. It was the saddest, most undignified retreat I can remember. I told my friends the truth, and they laughed. I told my mom much later. She was surprised, to say the least, but she took it in good humor. Story 4. There was a girl I used to work with a few years back. I was instantly smitten with her, and stayed that way for about a year and a half. I was 27 and she was barely 20, so it was probably a bad idea from the start, but she was the cutest thing I had ever seen. We talked and hung out whenever we could, but it was never much, and I always wanted more. I am pretty handy with PCs, so whenever she had a problem I was eager to help. Once I had her PC and copied her entire My Documents folder, going through several gigabytes of pictures across countless folders. I was not looking for anything improper, but I loved seeing so many different pictures of her. Most people leave their Facebook logged in on a home PC, her included. I went through everything there, hoping to find a message about me with our other coworkers, but I did not. I returned her PC a day or so later, but kept all the copied content. Later, I found out she was moving farther away for school, and I probably would not see her as easily. I convinced her to let me check her PC again just to make sure it was working properly, and of course she agreed. I repeated everything from before but went further this time. I copied any new pictures I found and also grabbed her stored Firefox data and installed it on my own PC. Now when I opened Firefox, it would open with all her data instead of mine. Saved passwords and everything. I kept checking her Facebook for as long as I could, until she randomly changed the password a month or two later. This all happened around August of 2012, and nothing ever came of it. I still miss her and think about her occasionally, but we do not really talk anymore. I think she has been dating someone for about a year, although she still describes her life as lonely. I could use the extra space, but I have never been able to delete all her pictures. I went to California last summer for a wedding and got a few things for her at Disneyland, but never had the chance to give them to her. I still have them in a closet. No throwaway, because all my friends know this story and joke about it enough that it seems more like a funny anecdote than the creepy reality it actually is. Story 5. I'm not sure if my story qualifies and it will probably get buried, but here goes. I have a raging obsession with a person I met about 10 years ago. Our first contact was online. A friend gave me her contact information because she supposedly had a computer problem I could solve. Side note, this was just a made-up problem by my friend to get me talking to her. She was struggling with depression after a really abusive relationship, and my friend thought she needed someone to talk to besides a therapist. I'm a rather empathetic person, so there's that. Anyway, we had an instant connection and phoned and texted through several nights in a row. Talking through everything pulled me in quite a bit. I had always struggled with depression, which in hindsight made it worse, but I was also very lonely and quickly developed feelings. So did she. She lived pretty far away, but it became clear we would eventually meet. I went to pick her up the following weekend, on a Saturday night. We met up with some friends of mine, had a really nice time, and not long into the evening, things got romantic. If there was ever a point in my life where I felt true love, that was it. Around dawn, things went downhill. She admitted she wasn't over her abusive ex yet, and we probably wouldn't meet again for some time. I also had to leave. I was devastated, massively tired, and had a long drive home ahead of me. I had already driven about 1,000 kilometers that night, and the only things that saved me were a truckload of caffeine and loud music. I fell into bed at noon and slept straight through Monday morning, waking at 5 to go to work. I had already been crying all the way to work and had a massive breakdown when I arrived. Luckily, someone drove me home. Shortly after, I saw a therapist to talk through what had happened. He told me to avoid seeing her again at all costs because she would pull me in so deep that it would completely throw me off, even more than it already had. After a couple of months, we had contact again, but after a long fight with me, I declined to meet up. Soon after, I learned she was moving to another city, and I never heard from her again. Sadly, the feelings never stopped. I've had my ups and downs, but there has never been more than 2 days that I haven't thought of her. Just listening to the music I played on my way home that night throws me off, and I've had plenty of nights where I've teared up, like yesterday. I never knew her last name or address, and however long I've tried to find her, I've just been out of luck. From time to time, I have the urge to drive to the place where everything happened. I don't know why. I'm just torturing myself standing there in the night, but wherever I live at the time, I'm willing to make the trip without a second thought. I'm not sure how to describe these feelings, but I'm fairly sure they will never disappear. It's been 10 years, but it feels like yesterday. It makes me tear up just the same. So, this is the story of my obsession with a person I spent exactly one night with. Think whatever you want, but it felt good to write it down. Story 6. I had a crush on this girl during high school, but she did not know it. One day in class, I accidentally sliced my finger open pretty badly with a pair of scissors. I was sent down to the nurse and past her locker on the way there. For some reason, I thought it would be a cute idea to anonymously draw a giant heart on her locker with my blood. In retrospect, it was not cute at all. I never told her I did it and even played along, agreeing about how creepy some kids at our high school were. Story 7. About 2 years ago, the lovey-dovey friendship I had with a guy I liked pretty much ended. After that, I could not get over it, so I would download texting apps and message him from those numbers. I also created fake profiles on whatever sites he used and pretended to be someone else just so I could talk to him. It eventually got to the point where I would beg my friend to invite him to a party whenever I was at her house playing Xbox, just so I could hear his voice. This went on for about 7 months until a couple of my friends held an intervention for me and told me to get my act together. Now that I look back on it, I cringe so hard. Story 8. Years ago, I used to walk into an office where I did not work every Tuesday at lunch and pretend that I belonged there. I would wear a suit, comb my hair neatly, and carry a briefcase or a newspaper. Then I would go into the dining room and eat the food that people had stored in the fridge. Bob and Robert. I do not know if it was the same guy, but I would only eat the food with the name Bob or Robert written on it. I even had conversations with some of the people who worked there. Of course, I was very cautious and never ate the food in front of them, but whenever I got the chance and was alone, I would eat it. I would sit in the dining room, read the newspaper, have some coffee from the coffee machine they had there, and just belong. Nobody questioned me. Story 9. A friend of mine dated a girl for a week. On the 8th day, they were supposed to hang out, and the girl was not answering her phone. My friend decided to A. Drive by her house and sit in front of it for 2 hours. B. Call a locksmith at 2 a.m. to have his locks changed, costing him $250. He had given her the key to his apartment. C. Send her long text messages calling her or. D. Send not safe for work pictures of himself and her to her ex-boyfriend on Facebook, telling him how much of a little slut she was. All along, she was in the emergency room with no reception on her phone. P.S. This dude also once threw a full-sized roasted chicken through the window of a grocery store because his ex was working the cash register right next to it. He also threw a full, unopened can of beer directly at my head because a girl he liked, whom he had met that night, was sitting on me. He is 28. Edit, I only see or hear about this dude about once a year. Calm down, people. He is not part of my actual group of friends. He does not influence me in any way, and I am not about to start an intervention for him. I have enough problems of my own. I do not want to deal with his. Thank you. Story 10. When I was a teen, I was completely obsessed with the paperboy, who was a cool grunger guy a few years older than me. I used to set an alarm on my digital watch to go off about 5 minutes before he usually came by, and I even kept it set while I was on holiday. Once, I hid in a bush in the front garden to get a better view while my friend took a photo of him from the upstairs window. I also regularly played music by bands I knew he liked with my window open when he arrived. I would stage conversations with my mom and friends so he could overhear things that made me sound cool. And for some reason they went along with it. I would get all dressed up and then conveniently leave the house as he was approaching, only to hide around the corner and go back inside once he was gone. There were plenty of other lame things like that. This went on for about 1 or 2 years. He must have known, but he never made fun of me to people we both knew. Now we share some friends and see each other socially, and I cannot believe I ever thought he was the most attractive and coolest guy I had ever seen. He is really not my type now. We did not usually talk, but during his last week as a paperboy, he asked if I wanted to come see his band play. It was not a bad way for my weird obsession to end. After that, it turned into a more normal crush because I could actually talk to him, and it stopped being this huge thing in my head. Story 11. When I first started dating my now husband, I did some internet sleuthing and found his live journal. Then I proceeded to read the entire thing, about 3 years of frequent posts. It was pretty personal stuff that I could not just bring up in casual conversation, so I did not tell him until years later, when he was already completely invested. He admitted it was a little creepy, but he does not sleep with the lights on or anything. Story 12. I got remarried in 2000. My new wife did not like my 16-year-old son. Convinced that my son was selling drugs, she wanted me to tap the house phone. Okay, so I stopped by a spy shop a few days later and bought the equipment. Anyway, I installed the recorder and honestly forgot to tell her. A couple more days passed. I got home late one night and listened to the recordings. I heard 3 hours of teenage nonsense and no drugs, and 3 minutes of her making a date with some guy. Long story short, I went to bed that night with the recorder and pushed the play button. She went screaming out of the room. It would not be fair if I did not mention that her previous relationship had also ended over a phone tap. Story 13. I was dating a guy in the military, and let's just say it was not for me. Every time he went away, I assumed he was having a great time with the female officers. Since we shared a Verizon account, I would check the phone numbers he called or texted and then call those numbers from a throwaway phone I bought at Walmart. So, in addition to the regular phone bill, I was paying $50 a month for a secret phone that I used solely to call the numbers he contacted. Most of the time it went to voicemail, and I would realize it was one of his buddies. I never caught him cheating, but my paranoia was still high when he was away for weeks at a time. Story 14. This happened just last week. I have been severely depressed and did not realize it for a while. My boyfriend has been my rock through everything, but because of that, he has also become my crutch. It got to the point where I felt like, if I did not have him, I did not have anything. Last Sunday, he really set me off because he left work to stay with his mom an hour away and did not tell me he was going until he got there. We argued on the phone all night about it, which was ridiculous. He kept hanging up on me, and I could not stop crying. After he fell asleep around 2 a.m., I still could not sleep, so I drove all the way to his mom's house. I called him over and over, but he would not answer. I tried knocking on the window to wake him, which woke the dog and then everyone else in the house. They caught me outside, and everyone was so mad at me. It was scary and incredibly embarrassing. I just could not calm down. His mom made me stay there the rest of the night. The next day, I went to the doctor and was put on a combination of meds. It has only been a week, so I cannot really tell a difference yet, but I am hoping it will help. We are still together. He is a really great guy, and I do not know how I got so lucky. I probably would have left my crazy self in a second. Story 15. I met this girl online who had some serious mental health issues. After a few months, I wanted to meet her in person, but she was scared I would think she was ugly or something. I jokingly said I would just come over and not leave until she opened the door. She replied, "Okay, then you would have to wait until my violent father comes home." "No problem," I said, and suddenly she became furious. She called me a liar and told me to go F myself. I really wanted to prove to her that she was important to me. The first thing I did was pack my bags to visit her the next day. I skipped school, told my parents that some girl had invited me, she didn't know I was coming, and just took the train. I ended up waiting in front of her door for an hour until her father came home. Ridiculous little fella. She still didn't want to see me, so I went to a hotel, talked to her, and we finally met the next day. It was the creepiest thing I have ever done because I was mentally unwell and addicted to her. I started cutting and smoking because of her. She was manipulative as hell, but she really helped me realize how messed up I was at that time. Story 16. After a bad breakup, I decided to pursue a crush I had several years earlier. She was recently single, so naturally I tried to work up the courage first, under the influence of Vicodin, and reached out to her on Facebook. The combination of the drugs and about 3 days without sleep turned that message into an email so long and cringeworthy that I still sometimes think about it in the shower while replaying imaginary arguments. Luckily, she was kind enough not to respond. She later let me redeem myself in a conversation, pretending I wasn't a complete fool. Story 17. I was obsessed with finding out the identity of one of Gone Wild's most attractive contributors. By going through her comment history, I noticed she had commented on someone's portrait shot that showed the exact same background as her explicit pictures. I realized she had commented on a selfie she had submitted with her main account. Sifting through her main account's history led me to a post about a meetup she had attended, where she published all the pictures she took there. Someone else from that meetup drew a diagram of where everyone was sitting around the table using first names. By inspecting the camera angles of the shots she took of the people around the table, I deduced her own position, and therefore her first name. She also mentioned the town she lives in and her age. I Googled her first name, age, and town. One of the results was a listing in a public people directory on the web like White Pages or mylife.com. I went through the names one by one until, about half an hour later, I recognized a familiar face. 30 seconds after that, I found her Facebook account. Story 18. I was pretty creepy in college. Over the years, there were a few guy friends I really liked. I thought I was in love with them, and I did things like keep up long, annoying text conversations and follow them around. If I saw one of them at a certain place and time on campus, I would remember, and eventually I memorized a lot of class and activity schedules so I could accidentally run into them. I also remember sitting on the upper floors of a building, watching the quad below, waiting to see a guy start walking my way, and then running downstairs to bump into him. Through all of this, I somehow convinced myself it was fate that I kept running into them, and I would obsess and daydream about us getting together. Nothing ever actually developed. I missed out on a lot of social development during middle and high school due to illness, so I went through my awkward obsessive crush phase several years late. Story 19. After watching Harriet the Spy as kids, my brother and I became obsessed with becoming spies. We put together kits and spied on our neighbors as much as possible. Our next-door neighbors were a quiet, older couple who kept to themselves. We decided that their behavior was shady and required some investigating. One night, we snuck onto their deck and watched them eat dinner, taking notes and everything. Story 20. I took part in a trade on Reddit. A guy there, we'll call his Reddit name Alias1, wanted a pizza, like on Random Acts of Pizza, in exchange for some trading cards. I agreed and sent him a gift card to an email that looked like his real name. We'll call it Alias 2. He said the cards were in the mail. Soon after, I noticed he deleted the thread asking for the pizza, which made me suspicious. I went through his entire post history looking for anything identifiable. I found mentions of the state he lived in and an Imgur album of his art under a third real-looking name, Alias 3. Searching Alias 1 on Google brought up a YouTube channel that appeared to belong to Alias 3, but the account name was Alias 2. At that point, I had a connection between all three names outside of Reddit. By then, he had deleted his entire Reddit account, which had been about 2 years old, so I knew he was trying to hide something. Using Google's reverse image search, I found a Facebook fan page for the band he did art for. From there, I found the connection to Alias 3, which had to be his real name. Everything lined up with the information I had, and I confirmed where he lived using white pages. I messaged several of his family members on Facebook and told them the story under a fake account. They were not happy. Apparently, he was already known as a freeloader, and his family had been looking for a reason to kick him out. Based on the response I got from his parents, he no longer lives there. Story 21. I got kicked from a CSGO match and held a grudge for the night. It felt like revenge was in order. I didn't remember the name of the guy who called the vote, so I shuffled through servers that were playing the same map until I found one that said I was banned. Getting vote kicked bans you from the server for an hour. Eventually, I found the right server and noted the IP. I added it to my Steam server favorites and viewed the server details from there. I made a list of all the people on the server and looked up their Steam profiles. I noticed that a large percentage of them all belonged to the same Steam group. It turned out to be a private group of kids from Canada who like to troll all kinds of servers. I put private in quotes because it wasn't actually set to private. The owners just expected nobody else to join. So I invited my entire friends list of over 100 people to their group. Whenever someone asked why I invited them, I told them to invite their own friends as well. Eventually, the group had over 100 members. The owners started freaking out and posting angry announcements. We rated their CSGO matches and turned the tables, vote kicking them instead. It was brilliant. Eventually, everyone from the group was kicked and the group disappeared. I probably went private after that. Story 22. In middle school, there was this guy who, once he had an idea in his head, would do anything to make it happen. I tried being nice to him, but that apparently wasn't a good idea. He was obsessed with a girl he didn't even know. He would send her instant messages, love letters, and stuffed animals, to the point where her dad threatened to call the cops on him. Eventually, he turned that obsession onto me. He wouldn't leave me alone. When I told him I was busy doing homework, he said he had been bitten by a poisonous spider. At first, I believed him and told him to get to the hospital. Then he made up a story about how he already went, but the doctors said that because he couldn't identify the spider, he would die that night. By then, I realized it was a lie and ignored him for being ridiculous. He then texted me saying he was outside my house, even though I never gave him my address. The next day at school, he left notes in all my classes apologizing. As I was leaving campus, he threw himself on the ground in front of me, begging for forgiveness. A few years later in high school, I got a call from a police officer conducting an investigation. They asked if I would testify about his behavior. Another girl had reported him as well. I was told he would be locked up in juvenile hall for a while. So, in summary, this guy stalked another girl, then flipped his obsession onto me, lied about dying, showed up at my house, threw himself on the ground for forgiveness, and eventually ended up in juvenile hall. Story 23. For the past 2 years, I've been cyberstalking an ex through almost every online profile she has created, even going back to accounts from before I knew her. I check more than several of her accounts daily, sometimes every other hour. I keep track of who she talks to, who she has talked to, what she is doing, and what she has done. I've also been with my current girlfriend for about a year now, and she is aware of this. Story 24. I maintain several fake Facebook accounts to support the legitimacy of one particular account. This main account was created for the sole purpose of friending a married mother of 4, soon to be 5, who lives in another state and blogs about her rustic lifestyle. My fake accounts are complex and well-developed, and I update them more frequently than my personal Facebook page. The focus of my little ministry of propaganda believes I'm a well-meaning Christian woman in my 60s. I've kept this going for 4 years. Story 25. Not me, but a friend of mine broke up with her boyfriend for a few months. When she did, he gave her a box containing everything he had saved of hers, including used tissues, napkins, and even a used tampon she had thrown out in his bathroom. To clarify, she broke up with him, and he immediately got out of his car and came back with this box which he apparently had been keeping in his car all along. She saw everything in it from used napkins and tissues to the tampon, along with normal items like jewelry or a jacket. Many items had tags with dates and descriptions of use or were simply labeled in marker on the napkins. She called me, so I went over, saw it all, and told him how messed up it was. I told him to leave or I would call the authorities. He left, and she went to the police station the next morning to file a restraining order, which she successfully obtained shortly after. Story 26. I was dating a girl who I thought I was seeing exclusively. For some background, I had some money, and at the time I was a pretty skinny guy before I got into weightlifting. Most of the girls I had dated up to that point were fairly attractive, but not very smart. This girl had a PhD, and I was kind of obsessed with the idea of dating a hot intellectual. I started to suspect she wasn't actually dating me exclusively, even though she said she was. She also told me we weren't going to do it because she was waiting for the results of an HPV screening, so we would go on dates, I would get a kiss, and that was it. My suspicion kept growing. I started sneaking into her upscale apartment complex, hopping the gate and watching her place. Once, I even walked up to the door and listened, and it sounded like there was a male voice inside. When I asked her about things casually, she would always change the subject. On one particular date, she went to the bathroom and I noticed her Blue Cross Blue Shield card sticking out of her purse. I took a picture of it with my phone and saved it. Later, I called and socially engineered my way into finding out that she wasn't waiting on an HPV test or any medical results at all. At that point, I was fully convinced something was going on. We had a coffee date not long after, and she asked me to help her pirate an expensive data analysis program. I brought a flash drive and used the opportunity to reset her stored passwords while she wasn't looking. Then I asked her to like my friend's band on Facebook. When she logged in, I got access to her account information. When I got home and logged into her Facebook, I realized she had been very careful with privacy settings. There was basically a whole different version of her page that I couldn't normally see. There were guys commenting pictures of parties she had been to on nights she had told me she was doing something else. When I checked her messages, I discovered she had been sleeping with multiple guys. The final surprise was that she was essentially engaged to a member of the US Air Force. I got drunk and made a bad decision. I reset her passwords and email access and then posted everything on her Facebook wall, message snippets and details exposing what I had found. I also removed her privacy settings. Within minutes, the posts had more than 100 likes. The airman saw it and responded with a comment. In the end, I basically destroyed her dating life. About a week later, she started texting me again asking to go on dates, apparently thinking I couldn't see what had happened because of the privacy settings she had originally set up for me. Looking back, I realize how extreme the whole situation was. Story 27. I turned into a crazy ex-girlfriend. I stalked my ex to the point of driving past his house and even sitting underneath his bedroom window to listen to him and his new girlfriend. I followed them to bars and tried to ruin their nights as often as possible. The night I attempted to hurt myself, I was high and broke into his house. He found me on his floor and I begged him to off me. I would also cut myself and send him pictures of the injuries. I'm not proud of any of it. At the time, I was using a lot of drugs, drinking every night, and dealing with serious mental health issues and PTSD after a miscarriage. Since then, I've been in a long-term mental health facility getting the help I need. I can't take back what I did, and my ex will probably never forgive me, but I'm trying to use my experience to teach others about the importance of getting help for mental health problems. I'm currently writing a book about my experiences with stalking, self-harm, depression, and OCD. Story 28. My best friend and I had a strange habit in high school. Every year we would choose a freshman to stalk. We broke into their lockers, took pictures with their personal items, and posted them on MySpace. Yes, MySpace. We also found out where they lived, and crashed their birthday parties and other events. We bought them expensive gifts that we knew they wanted. We took secret pictures of them and got them put into the yearbook. We asked them to dance every day. We figured out their daily schedules and greeted them as they walked into class. We left them affectionate voicemails. One kid actually went to the counselor about us. Nothing happened though because we were not technically harming them in any way. Story 29. I had a crush on a girl in college. I was suspicious that a good friend, who knew how I felt about her, spent night with her one night. I couldn't sleep, it was driving me nuts. I rode my bike past his house, which was on the way to and from a lot of places around 4 or 5 in the morning to see if her bike was there. It was. That's when I got to experience what it feels like to have your heart break and feel like a total scumbag at the same time. Feels bad, man. Story 30. I'd call it reverse stalking. In college, I hosted photo galleries from my personal computer, just normal photos from parties, trips, and so on. Since I was hosting them myself, I had all the Apache logs. Back then, all the computers had identifying IPs and host names, so you could fairly easily figure out who was using them. I would often see a friend click on a photo link, and then I'd message them on AIM to ask about the specific photo they were looking at, just to freak them out. As for why it's called reverse stalking, I could see when someone was stalking me going through all my photos and so on. As it turns out, everyone does that now, so it's not even interesting anymore. Story 31. Essentially, my boyfriend and I broke up for a few months and then got back together. During that time, he dated and slept with a few women he knew. I didn't I think I was more upset about it than he was. In my obsession, I created a fake Facebook account to befriend these women as well as a few others for decoy reasons and learn as much as I could about them. We got back together, and I still have this account almost 3 years later. I still check it occasionally. I even kind of became friends with one of the women, and we comment on each other's posts after she went through a crisis on Facebook. I happen to be the only person online she could talk to. I may be a creepy bish, but I'm a supportive creepy bish. Anyway, I've always worried that my boyfriend might find out about it, or that the other women might. I don't know why I haven't deleted it. Part of me worries that he might still be interested in them, and I monitor their pages to see how he interacts. He hasn't in like 2 years. Every time I use that alternate account though, I feel pretty obsessive. Story 32. I got really caught up on this one girl who almost never responded to my texts, calls, or emails. But when I saw her, she would act like she had read them and enjoyed that I had sent them, and she would tell all her friends what I had been sending her. She almost never responded to me directly. She didn't have Facebook, and she was always losing her phone. She constantly missed any meetings we arranged and would apologize the next time she ran into me, always with some excuse. It confused the hell out of me and made me start to really like her. That like kept growing more and more frustrated over time. Unanswered texts, missed calls, missed dates and appointments. Most of the time we hung out, her creepy ex would just be there standing around. I really enjoyed spending time with her, but she was strange. She'd always say something off the wall that would surprise me and make me laugh. I once tried to invite her to smoke some weed with me, and she shushed me off the phone and hung up, but we often smoked together anyway. I began to think she thought she was being watched or followed because she acted so secretive. I texted her, "Do you feel like you're being followed?" Next thing I knew, she was saying I was following her and watching her. My friends started getting wary of me and seemed to ignore me. I ended up flipping out and texting her every little thing I could think of, everything I felt about her, every little symbol I noticed, a totally obsessive behavior. Then, surprisingly, she wanted to date me. I basically walked away from that because I was still angry that she had called me a stalker, and I was confused that when I acted obsessively, she wanted to date me. Unfortunately, I never really got a chance to get over her, and I had to delete most of her contact information in the end. Her group of friends talked badly about me, and my group of friends didn't empathize at all. On another note, I once drew a picture of a girl's face on a t-shirt, someone I was sort of dating, and didn't tell her. I never wore it, but looking back, that was kind of creepy of me. Story 33. Several years back, I asked a girl out, someone I had had a crush on for the longest time, on a date. She said yes, and we agreed on a date and time. At the time, my naive younger self thought this girl would truly be the one, given our long history. So I wanted to make it really memorable and tried to book a table at a fancy restaurant. I got the reservation for the agreed-upon time. Later in the week, I believe the day before the date, she texted to say she could not make it. At the time, I saw this as disrespectful, or maybe just not very thoughtful. We had agreed on a date and she decided to go on a trip instead. Again, I was very naive, so I just said okay and suggested we schedule for another day. I called her in the middle of the next week to try to set a new date, but she didn't respond. Now this is where the obsessive part kicks in. I started posting on her Facebook wall, stupid move obviously, and asked her what had been going on. She said she had lost her phone, which explained the missed calls. Then the next day, my genius younger self thought it would be romantic to leave a cringy date proposal letter on her front doorstep. No response since. Lost contact. C'est la vie. It was unfortunate. I really did have a thing for this girl for the longest time, and it was all thrown away by something so stupid and obsessive. The good news is, I've since moved on. I couldn't feel better. Story 34. One time, I met a girl in a beach town bar and really hit it off. Or at least I thought I did. We made plans to meet the next night after she got off work at the white tablecloth restaurant across the street. I got to the bar at 8 and had a drink while I waited. By 9, I was ordering my third and made the brilliant decision to go get her. But I didn't want to be a jerk and just walk in, so I drove over and tried to spot her through the windows because I'm clever like that. I didn't see her, no matter how hard I tried. Maybe she wasn't even working that night. Maybe the whole thing was a blow-off. Maybe she didn't even work there at all. It didn't matter to the cops. Thank goodness I had detailed my Honda Civic that day so I could say, "Sure, you can look around. I'm just a stalker but not a dangerous one, and not risk getting arrested." With the alcohol on my breath, they didn't let me drive away. But as long as they saw me walk toward the beach bar, they didn't care what else happened. Marcy, I know it's been almost 30 years, but I'm at Beach Bums every Sunday night just like we said. I know it might be too late now, but if you're ever bored and curious, you know where I'll be. Story 35. When I was in the 2nd grade, I had a crush on a girl. At first, it was cute and everyone thought it was sweet, but as I grew older, I became strangely obsessive. We had an on and off dating thing in middle school, during which I would check who else she liked and even befriend those boys just to keep them away from her. Needless to say, this childhood obsession probably explains why I am socially awkward nowadays. I am almost 19, do not have a license, a job, or a girlfriend, but at least I am no longer obsessed with her. Story 36. A girl I knew became a full-time stalker of another mutual female friend of ours and has been harassing her for over 10 years, ever since the victim ended their friendship because of the stalker's behavior. She uprooted her life and moved to the same state and even the same town as her victim, without any reason other than to follow her. Some of the things she did include signing up for all the same college classes as her victim, taking up competitive shooting after the victim began it, dyeing her hair the same color as her victim, trying to get a job in the same law enforcement field, ordering items from the victim's wedding gift wish list and sending them to her own house so they would be marked as taken, buying the same kind of car, faking a knee injury to see the same physiotherapist, and attempting the same with her doctor and therapist, joining the same gym and appearing outside her work and grocery store. She fully believes the victim is at fault, despite clearly following her across the country for no reason other than to mimic her. She was arrested, and the court case is ongoing. Her lawyer even requested that the restraining order be lifted so she could attend the same shooting competitions as her victim. She is clearly out of touch with reality. Female-on-female stalking without a romantic element is rare, and 10+ years of this behavior is extremely unsettling. I hope the court rules in her victim's favor. Story 37. Back in 4th grade, I really liked this girl, Jessica. We were both pretty smart for the class, or at least it seemed that way to me, and it turned out we both liked to draw. When I heard about an art class advertisement, I eagerly signed up, hoping to improve my drawing and painting skills. And, oh my God, she was there. I was so nervous talking to her. On the first day, the instructor had us draw an orange very carefully. A few days later at school, during free time, I started doodling. She sat near me, noticed, and said with a big smile, "Draw an orange." Every little snippet of conversation I had with her, though there was never much, usually ended with me regretting what I said. In 5th grade, I went through that whole love-hate phase. I was drawing or writing something, and she asked what it was. I bitterly said, "Nothing," and closed my notebook. It was more mental than anything else. I thought about her constantly, wondering what she would think about this or that. I used to be really imaginative, creating stories and drawings based on my interests but adding my own twists. In one story, I had characters named after my real-life friends, all of whom were totally cool. One of them was Jessica, and the story focused a lot on the two of us friends kicking A together with a hint of something more. Her last name was very close to mine, so throughout grade school from 3rd to 8th grade, she was often right behind me in line for lunch, or right next to me whenever alphabetical order was involved. We never chatted much, but I stole glances at her whenever I could. I really admired her and wanted to be just like her in every sense of the word. I remember in 4th grade I had a diary that I wrote in inconsistently. I'd jot down random thoughts or things that happened, though sometimes I'd make things up and I knew I was making them up. I was just an ordinary little kid. I often wrote about things I wished Jessica and I could do together. Never anything inappropriate, just hugs, cuddles in winter, little things like that. I'd even note a few things she said she liked, because I wanted to remember them. It was like trying to get to know someone you barely knew without actually talking to them. I was so shy. By 8th grade, I still really liked her, though we talked even less than before. It was the last year at that school. Graduation was coming up, and my mind kept thinking, I've got to act now. I might never see her again. I thought about how to do it, but fear of rejection froze me. One morning, at home, I pulled out the school directory and found her address. I wrote her secret admirer notes. Honestly, I don't remember how many, but there were a handful. At first, they were brief and simple. "Dear Jessica, I think you're really pretty. Your secret admirer." I meant every word, but I didn't put my return address on the envelopes. I was that scared. The final letter I sent was much longer. I spilled so many thoughts I'd held in my head over the years, revealing how long I'd liked her and how much I enjoyed the art class we'd taken together, but I still didn't reveal my identity. About a week later, I got a letter addressed to me. No return address. I was nervous as hell before even opening it. I had an idea of what might be inside, but desperately hoped it would work out. The school I attended was a Catholic school, and I had been very religious for most of those years. I remember praying so intensely, hoping, wishing, begging in every way I could, that she might feel even a little the same way I did. I opened her letter. It was a full sheet of paper, but the letter was mostly blank, except for one line. "It's not interesting. Leave me alone." It was a stab to the heart, horrifying. After that, I couldn't look her in the eye. I couldn't even look at her. I feared she had told her friends, and it felt like they all knew. Throughout high school, she and her friends gave me dirty looks, and several of them even blocked me on Facebook, despite having sent me friend requests before. I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I hadn't been so foolish. For the longest time afterward and even today, I worry about coming across as creepy. It's made me reluctant to share things about myself or my life. I'm okay at talking to people and learning about them, but I'm like a turtle withdrawn into its shell. I reveal almost nothing, so much so that it's become an unconscious habit. I used to obsess about appearing creepy, less so now, but the worry still lingers. It's strange. This has affected so many parts of my life. I don't spend as much time as I should with my brother or my parents, or even with my friends, whether online or in person. It's daunting to put into words just how much this shaped me. For the longest time, I was the thirstiest guy I knew, desperate for a girlfriend, craving companionship. Over the past 4, almost 5 years, I've gone out with several girls, but none have been truly close to me. They can share their lives with me, but I can't do the same with them. Not even with the girl I dated for 13 months. It's a crippling part of my personality, one I fear I may never fully overcome, even though I desperately want to. We went to the same high school, though we never had a class together. In junior year, the school held a special mass, a Catholic ceremony celebrating juniors as they prepared to metaphorically take the torch from the graduating seniors. How did we stand? Alphabetically, of course. At one point, everyone held hands as part of the mass. Later, there was the sign of peace, a handshake with those around you wishing them peace. I shook her hand. I was nervous as hell, of course, but she smiled at me, which still surprises me. Maybe she did it out of pity. I wonder if this haunts her as much as it haunts me. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.